Hey everyone, and welcome to my first ever commentary-based video. So, I have been wanting to do this for a while now, and finally got up the courage to do it. So this is me trying out my new gouache paints along with some watercolors for the first time. Now, I know I posted a little while ago about my first reaction to these paints, and to be fair, I really liked them. Like, that's my honest opinion. They're really, really nice paints. And I decided, actually, even during that video, I was like, holy crud, I know exactly what I want to do with these things. So, when I was testing out the white on black, I was amazed at the coverage and decided I wanted to do something Harry Potter themed with Patroni. And, yeah, that was the basis of this painting. Just thought it would be fun, I guess. I've been in a really big Harry Potter mood. I recently started rereading the books, and it just really pushed me to try something a little different than my usual painting style. So I decided, hey, let's break out the watercolors again. Let's give this a try. So the first half of this video, as you saw, was the background, and that was mostly watercolors. This is actually me finally getting into the gouache paints that I recently tested out. So the main thing about these paints is that they do layer, but they blend with what's behind them. It's the biggest problem with them. You push it too far and suddenly, oh, look at that, paint from 3 layers ago is popping up all over the place. So it takes a lot of careful planning to work with these paints, or just not a lot of overwork, but they turned out really nicely. At this point in the video, I'm kind of back and forth between watercolor and acrylic, or gouache, my bad, and you can really see the difference between the two. Like, they work very similarly, but the richness of the color and the coverage it gets if you thicken it just right is honestly really beautiful to look at. The way layers just build up and build and build is not something I've ever found with any other kind of paint that I've enjoyed. Like, I've worked with acrylic and I've worked with oils, and honestly, I really love the gouache. The way with the gouache, you're not limited to what you've just put down. You're limited by how many layers you can conceivably put on the paper. And if you have sealant, you can even build them up even further. Now, I did not use sealant during this painting, despite how many layers I actually put on here, but it is purely just watercolor and gouache. There's nothing else in here. I did attempt to use a jelly roll, only to find out that the paint didn't take to it very well, but that was only for my signature. So I painted on my signature at the end, and you'll see at the end it's really messy. But anyway, here comes the actual focal point of the painting in general. I wanted to do something based off of Snape and his role throughout the films and the books as just this dark protector. He's never really seen, only ever really heard of after the fact. And I loved the thought of, even though the protector is standing right behind his Patronus, the Patronus is the main focal point, is the one we see, especially in the 7th book. Spoilers, I guess? It's been out for a while. I don't think it counts as a spoiler anymore. But yeah, another point of this painting was to play with multiple light sources, because I'm still getting used to different light sources and using color in my paintings. To that degree, I am very much primarily a portrait or caricature painter, English. So this was a really big leap for me, because it's a combination of, first of all, landscapes, which I am horrid at, and then also animals. Then throw in 2 different light sources, one of the items glowing, well, challenge, like both items glowing, and it really pulled me out of my comfort zone, especially with a new medium. But throughout the process, I found that these gouache paints really stepped up to the challenge. Like, I could water them down to have them as thin as watercolors without even breaking a sweat, and then when I wanted to add a nice thick solid color, I could. As long as you added a little bit of water, they were perfectly fine. And the fact that I could go back and pick up color or build on top of color was super, super awesome. And yeah, I've never had paint like that before. Just being able to lay down my white and then soften it to make a gradient on the trees, or being able to thicken it up to the point where I could make individual blades of grass that covered everything else no matter what color it was just an amazing experience. And you can see now I'm kind of focusing on the Patronus itself, and here what I was trying to do was I wanted to make it as white as possible. Like, I went over it layer by layer to make sure. But then I added highlights around it to give it that little blue glow it seems to have in the films. And I fell in love with that with watching the movies, so I had to include that. And here I'm just building up more of the area around them. Like I said, I am not a landscape painter. There is probably 100 different ways to paint a forest, and this is probably a very, very poor representation of one of them. But it was an attempt, and I'm trying to branch out of my comfort zone. Having begun my art career in manga and anime means that you're very limited on what you've learned. So I'm trying to push myself to use animals and locations and whatever else more. Like, maybe eventually I'll actually push myself and draw a building, because I hate straight lines with a passion. So here's me adding a little bit of a glow at the end of the painting. I just found that I could build with these paints really easily. So I just focused on layering and layering and layering, and using the gouache's ability to go over top of itself and still work around it. Yeah, it was amazing. Like, you'll see coming up here with the highlights I'm doing on the trees, just to emphasize exactly how much this thing is glowing. There's a point coming up here where I blend out the white with water just slightly on the trees, and it blends it perfectly into the dark, almost black brown I've created for these trees. And it means that I don't have to build layer by layer like I would with acrylic, or have to work fast with acrylic. It means that I can do my layer and then soften it afterwards, and then come back and build it again if I haven't got quite what I'm looking for. And working primarily with acrylic, with alcohol-based markers, my apologies. Like, I'm primarily a Copic and Pro Marker girl. Like, that is kind of what I've been using since I was, 14, I want to say? And I'm coming up on 24. So I have a lot of experience with them, and having this opportunity to just try something new and have different opportunities open to me. I mean, yeah, I can't blend as much as I normally would because it picks the paint up, but oh boy, working with a new medium for the first time, I have to say, I think it turned out really, really well. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my rambling. Bye now.